Hello people, today we are going to read about hypersensitivity. So first we have to understand the definition of hypersensitivity. So basically hypersensitivity is excessive and potentially harmful reaction to the endogenous or exogenous antigen, and it usually occur in previously sensitized individual. So what you understood from the definition is basically if some antigen is coming in my body, so my body is going to produce the immune response to protect my body from that antigen, right? If that immune response is in exaggerated form, it is too much in already sensitized individual, then it is known as hypersensitivity. So we have four type of hypersensitivity, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 are antibody mediated and fourth one is cell mediated. So first we are going to read type 1 hypersensitivity. Type 1 hypersensitivity is also known as anaphylactic hypersensitivity, and it usually occur immediately, like just after the exposure with the antigen, the hypersensitivity will occur. So the most important thing is examples and mechanism of any type of hypersensitivity. You have to remember all the examples and the mechanism of hypersensitivity. So now we are going to read the mechanism of type 1 hypersensitivity. So what happens in type 1 hypersensitivity is when some antigen is coming, it will go to antigen presenting cells that are present in my body. So antigen presenting cells will take that antigen and they will give that antigen to the T cells. Now what T cells are going to do is T cells are going to activate Th2 cells that are also immunological cells only. So Th2 cells will release interleukin 4, interleukin 5 and interleukin 3. Now interleukin 4 is responsible for the release of IgE antibody. Okay, so basically IgE antibody, you just have to remember it, it is very important. IgE antibody is involved in type 1 hypersensitivity. Interleukin 5 will be responsible for eosinophils production. Interleukin 13 will be responsible for mucus production. So IgE antibody, after it is released, it will go and bind to mast cells. Mast cells are also immunological cells in my body. So after IgE antibodies bound to mast cells, there is a word that is known as sensitization of mast cells. After IgE antibody bound to mast cells, it is known as sensitization of mast cells. So up to this, this happened in the first exposure of the antigen to in my body. Now if re-exposure occur, if again that antigen is coming in my body, so what will happen is there will be polymerization of IgE cells on the mast cells. Polymerization means all of them will polymerize. Then mast cells is going to activate. Activate means it is going to burst, like degranulation of mast cells. So it will burst and it will release the mediators of inflammation, or mediators I'll tell you later on. And that mediators will lead to hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity means symptoms. We'll see the symptoms of hypersensitivity like rashes. If some allergy is there, rashes will be there, all that we can see. So now what are the mediators released? Are preformed mediators that are already present in the mast cell as the granules, that is histamines or proteases or enzymes. Activation of phospholipase 8-2 can release prostaglandins, leukotrienes, that you have to remember, the mediators of inflammation. It's almost same as that only. So basically there are two phases, immediate phase and the late phase. Late phase usually occur after 2 to 24 hours. And immediate phase usually occur in minutes. In immediate phase, what happens, same as inflammation, vasodilatation, increased vascular permeability and all those things. And mucus production can also be there. So now what we have to remember is, we have to remember the examples of hypersensitivity 1. So this mnemonic you can remember ABCD. So A for atopy, allergy and anaphylaxis, B for bronchial asthma, C for Cassoni's test. Usually we do in hydrantitis, that you'll read in micro. So D for drug reactions, and F for hay fever, F for fever you can remember hay fever. Then foreign proteins or food allergy and all that. So now we are going to read type 2 hypersensitivity. It is little bit easy actually. Type 1 is a big deal actually, but type 2 is little bit easy. So in type 2 hypersensitivity, what happens is basically in type 1, IgE antibodies are involved. In type 2 hypersensitivity, IgG antibody will be involved. So basically type 2 hypersensitivity occur by three mechanisms. First is opsonization and phagocytosis. Next is complement activation. Then antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity. Any three mechanism can lead to type 2 hypersensitivity. So what happens is in opsonization and phagocytosis, antigen is there and antibody will come. Antibody, which antibody? IgG antibody will come. It will bind to antigen, and that the opsonization means like opsonins will come and bind to the antigen and make the antigen tasty so that the macrophages can come and eat that. Like antigens, some antigens are like too much dangerous that macrophages can't come and directly eat it. So opsonization, some coating should be there so that that macrophage can identify that antigen. So basically IgG antibody will come and bind to antigen and it will make it tasty, and then macrophage can identify it and it will eat it. So next is inflammation and complement activation. What happens in this is IgG antibody will lead, bound to the surface of basement membrane. It can also bound to extracellular matrix and all. That will lead to complement activation. Complement activation will lead to C3 or C5 release and all that. So complement release will lead to activation of leukocytes that are also immunological cells. Everything, all the cells are immunological cells that are also there in inflammation. Then leukocytes activation will lead to free radicals and enzymes that will lead to tissue injury. This is how tissue injury, hypersensitivity is occurring. Next is antibody dependent cell mediated hypercytotoxicity. It is usually autoimmune disease. What happens is antibody come and binds directly to the cells. Example is Graves and the myasthenia gravis. Like what happens is antibodies are there that they will directly bind to the cells. Like in Graves also auto antibodies are produced, right? That they will go and bind to my own cells and destroy it. So this was type 2 hypersensitivity. That is also over. Now most important is examples of type 2 hypersensitivity. This you can remember by the mnemonic. My blood group is Rh positive. So M for myasthenia gravis, B for blood transfusion, G for Graves disease and Goodpasture syndrome, I for idiopathic thrombocytic purpura, then rheumatic fever, then hyperacute graft rejection, then pernicious anemia. So this mnemonic you can remember. So next is type 3 hypersensitivity. Type 3 is immune complex mediated. Immune complex mediated, obviously most of you will be knowing that immune complex means antigen antibody will bind to each other and it will go and deposit in the organs. If something abnormal is going to deposit in my organs, it is going to produce damage. So inflammation and tissue injury will occur. So examples of type 3 hypersensitivity you can remember by the mnemonic SHARP. S for serum sickness or SLE, H for Henoch-Scoldin purpura, A for Arthus reaction, R for reactive arthritis, P for post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Now we have type 4 hypersensitivity. Type 4 hypersensitivity, basically nothing much is there. It is delayed type of hypersensitivity, cell mediated. T cells and B cells will be involved. Usually T cells are involved. T cells we have CD4 or CD8 cells. If it is CD4, then it is classic delayed hypersensitivity. If CD8 cells are involved, that is direct cell toxicity will be there. Now examples of type 4 hypersensitivity is granuloma formation, tuberculin test, lepronin test, multiple sclerosis. So this is all about hypersensitivity. I hope everything was like easy for you. So what you have to do is you have to remember the examples, you have to remember the pathogenesis, then this and which antibody is involved in which hypersensitivity. So basically type 1 hypersensitivity, IgE antibody involved. Then examples mnemonic you can remember by ABCD. Type 2 hypersensitivity, IgG antibodies are involved and usually IgM are also involved. So this mnemonic you can remember. My blood group is Rh positive. Then type 3 hypersensitivity, immune complex mediated. In this also antibody which is involved is IgG and IgM. This mnemonic you can remember as SHARP. Then type 4 hypersensitivity is delayed type. That's also examples you can remember. So thank you.